that is you press star 2 on your phone. That's going to raise your hand, and I'll be able to open your line so you can ask Alex or share with Alex whatever you like. Also, if you're on the web, you can type in a question for Alex, and I will go ahead and read that to him, and he can answer that way. So, Alex, our topic this week was the problem is never the problem. Did you want to share something about that?
Yeah, I would, Johanna. Great to hear your voice. The problem is never the problem. This goes all the way back to my very first undergraduate psychology class. I go in not knowing what to expect. I'm not a psychology major at that time. And the professor, wise old, psychologist professor, writes on the board, the problem is never the problem. And then turns around and says, okay, this is the first thing you need to know if you're thinking about going into counseling, that virtually 100% of the time when the person comes in and tells you what their problem is, the reason they are almost 100% of the time wrong. That is not the real problem, and that is not why they are there. And so your job as a therapist will be to educate them on what the real problem is, because the odds of fixing it, if they don't even know what it is, aren't very good. And then leading them through a process that will help them fix that issue. And I found that counseling doesn't do that a whole lot of the time either. But anyway, when I first heard that, I thought he was nuts. I mean, 100 years of counseling and therapy, and still people aren't educated enough to know what their real problem is. And by the way, why would they say that's the problem if it almost never is? But over the years, Johanna, I guess the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, as I went on and got my doctorate, did a year-long internship, all that sort of thing, those words were proven true to me. That not 100% of the time, but for sure in the 90s and maybe even the high 90s, what people will tell you is the reason for their angst, the reason for their stress, the reason for their anger, the reason for the problems in their life. They're wrong. Those are not where that problem is coming from. And which is one of the great ironies or paradoxes on planet Earth. It has to be. I mean, 99% of the time, and these are intelligent people, most of them, it's really remarkable is what it is. But the real problem is usually, not 100% of the time, usually a relationship, all right? Because the way we're wired in our brain and nervous system, if we are focused on love, either in a memory or an active relationship or in the present moment, it can cause the release of oxytocin and all the positive hormones, chemicals, thoughts, feelings. If we're focused on something fear-based and negative when our life is not in an emergency situation, it causes the opposite. Negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative chemicals, etc. So it's all about love versus fear. That's virtually any problem you can have in your life is about love versus fear. Well, there is no love outside the context of relationship. And fear is an absence of love. So even if you have no idea which relationship it's connected to, somewhere down there in your unconscious or subconscious, chances are there's a relationship memory or issue that is resonating a negative signal to your brain, and that is the source of your problem. When you go out in rush hour traffic and get all stressed out or go into road rage and you say the problem is the traffic, well, I can prove to you real quick that's not true, because the person right next to them is not going into road rage. They're singing along with the radio and are not all stressed out. So if it was just that the circumstances will produce stress, then it would do it in the other person too, or at least a high percentage. But that's not the case. The person who goes into road rage is programmed to go into road rage by, in their unconscious, subconscious, what Solomon called the spiritual heart, etc. So, I would highly recommend this week that you think about, okay, well, what would I say are my problems in my life, or things that I would like to go better if maybe you don't feel like you have any problems, and then say, okay, this thing with traffic that I have, or with money, or with this health issue I have, or whatever. What is my number one biggest negative emotion related to that? And then go back and see, okay, what relationship in my life has that negative emotion stands out as being a part of that relationship, and then work on that relationship. Even if it was, a friend in the neighborhood when you were 5 years old, or your mom or dad, of course, or siblings, or non-relatives, or the preacher, or the teacher, or whoever. Work on that, the memory of that relationship until that emotion is no longer bothering you. Then find another one, another relationship memory with that same negative emotion. Work on that until it's not bothering you anymore, etc., 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 until all the past ones you know of have been healed, none of them bother you anymore. Then focus on the traffic. But I bet there's a 75% chance you already will not be reacting negative in traffic without ever really addressing the traffic, just by healing those relationship memories. Now, the variable is if the issue is from your ancestry. And for those, I would just simply do a memory engineering, do a trilogy, do a rapid eye stress, and let your prayer be to heal all of the memories related to this that you don't know about, whether when you were 2 years old, or in utero, or a birth trauma, or your great-great-great-grandmother, and it's been passed down to you. And I believe that will happen as you work on that. But that's what I would say is the practical application this week, is get a piece of paper out, write down all those memories related to what you would say your problems are in your life right now. Work on those and see if those symptom issues don't get better. And the last thing is, in that statement, the problem is never the problem. It doesn't mean that it's not a problem. Sure, the presenting symptom problem is a problem. And if you've got a way to work on that symptom, that's fine too. But it's not the problem. The problem is virtually always from the unconscious, the subconscious, your ancestry, your programming, a relationship, memory issue somewhere. Heal that, and the symptom usually takes care of itself. So, that's it for this week.
Thank you, Alex. That was awesome. Good recap. Okay, so we have one hand up right now, Alex, so I'm going to go ahead and open that line.
Sure.
It's your number. Okay, this person is in California, and your number is 1664. And your line is open. What question do you have?
Hi, Dr. Alex. This is Glenn from your friend in West Hollywood.
Hey, Glenn. How you doing today?
Doing great. This last teaching was a bell ringer.
Well, good.
I never occurred to me, every traumatic event we go through usually is connected with somebody else.
That's right. Or it finds its meaning in the other people that are involved.
Yes, beautiful. I wanted to ask you, I've been following you for a while, as you know, and I've got your books, and I study trilogy trilogy and have used the trilogy in my own healing practice, and I found sometimes it knocks it out. Sometimes it gets about 50% of it. So I wanted to ask you some advice. Do you recommend me getting the follow-up course that you offer on the site, or what would you recommend from somebody who's been a student of yours and wants to go to the next step?
Well, the next step, if you want to work with other people, would be our practitioner training, or if you don't want to do all of that, just specifically our trilogy training. You can be trained in just trilogy to work with other people, or you can do the whole enchilada, which is our practitioner training, which we call becoming a whole life coach, where you're not just focused like a lot of life coaches on one area, but the whole life, mental, physical, spiritual, everything with multiple tools in a holistic way. So that's really up to you. You could do the trilogy and become like certified in that, or I would highly recommend becoming a whole life coach. I believe they're by far the most effective of any life coaches out there.
Okay. That sounds great. I've been a life coach doing energy psychology as part of my coaching and healing for a number of years. So
that fit perfect with you.
We'll look into the additional training on the website. You have your free trilogy training.
Uh-huh.
And there's another course beyond that. Do you recommend getting that to go further, or something else?
Yeah, I absolutely do, because in the free training, you do not get minute 4 and minute 5. And I call minute 5 the miracle minute. And so I would absolutely do that, because adding minute 4 and 5 to the 3 minutes increases the effectiveness of the whole at least 50%. So absolutely.
Holy smokes. Okay, I will get it today. And if I have questions about that, is there someone I can write?
Yeah. Johanna, give him our support email, and then they will get you to the appropriate person to answer your question. If that's me, they'll get it to me. If it's a coach, they'll get it to a coach. But absolutely. Johanna?
Yes, you can send in your questions to us at feedback@thehealingcoach.com, and feedback@thehealingcoach.com.
Thehealingcoach.com. Beautiful. I have that. Thank you so much, you guys. I love you.
Thank you, Glenn. God bless you. Love you.
Really appreciate. Love you too.
Bye-bye.
God bless you. All right, so we have another 10 minutes.
All right. Yes. Hi, Patricia.
Hi. I have a strange situation. I had a roommate who left 2 years ago, and she kept borrowing my car for the last time was 36 days. And when she brought it back, she left it in a grocery store shopping lot, and then broke off with me. Just broke contact a week or so later. Not quite sure why, but she put up my house keys and my car keys, and no contact whatsoever. She won't answer any of my messages. So I, unfortunately, was panic attack, and I've been trying to work with healing just to let go of that fear. But there's still the real. I have no idea where she is. And she's got my keys.
Sure. So you want my 2 cents?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, you might think about changing your locks and things like that. I've seen many situations that were once very kind and considerate turn really, really ugly. So you might think about changing your locks and stuff. You might take steps to get new keys because you have no idea when or if she is coming back. I would.
Get new car keys is about $600, and I haven't got that money.
Okay. Well, then I'm not sure. I guess if you don't have the money for that and you can't charge it or something, because I assume you need to use your car, and I guess you're at her mercy, just waiting for her to come around or not, which is not a great situation. It doesn't sound like, since 36 days is a pretty long time. But I would also, leave her a message if you can on her phone, even if she won't pick up and talk to you. And I would speak the truth in love. All right, and you got to have both of those, not just one of them.
I did that already. I don't have a phone number for her. Because she lent her phone to someone, so I don't even know if she has a phone.
Okay, then I would pray for her that not only will she come back, but that she will feel love, joy, and peace, not anger or whatever it is that she's feeling now. And I would pray for yourself, and I would do some healing work on yourself to reduce the stress and anxiety from this, okay? You may not be able to completely resolve it until something happens one way or the other, but you may be able to get yourself from like a -8 on a 0 to 10 scale to, a -2 or 3, something that is much more manageable. And if I were you, after 36 days and you still can't drive your car, you might alert the authorities and say, hey, this happened and I need my keys back. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah, so you might alert the authorities and say, hey, I need my keys back. This person borrowed my car, did not bring it back. It's been 36 days. I can't afford new ones. I need my keys back. And see if they can help.
Okay.
But I would do some healing work on yourself so that you can go through this at least in more peace, if not in peace.
Okay.
And Johanna can help you with that in a minute.
Hello, Patricia? Yeah. Yeah, so if after we finish with this section of the call, if you want to come back on and raise your hand, we can get you a custom code to address the panic attack if you like.
So I raise my hand later?
Yes, that's what I choose this portion. Come back in. I'll announce when that time is, and then you can just raise your hand again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, we have another question, another hand up, Alex.
All right.
This caller is from Oregon, and your number ends in 5212. Your line is open.
Yes, my name is Edna, and some years ago I got the healing code book, and then I bought the basic program.
Okay.
It is very effective, but the reason I haven't gone any farther with Philippines or any of the other things is because I have a really bad case of resistance.
Okay.
I resist doing the code.
Mm-hmm.
I resist. It just meant that even though I would use those codes and they would work, after a certain period of time, I would just resist doing them. And I did. This is the strangest thing. I just would work so hard.
Yeah.
And this resistance carries through into my life. Resisting things, avoiding things that I know I need to. But I just don't know where it comes from.
Well, here's one thing I would recommend in light of what we're talking about today. I would say probably there's a good chance that the source of your resistance is some relationship issue that is inside you and unresolved, or it is a relationship issue or memory that has a good bit of negative in it. Anger, irritation, unforgiveness, sadness, something, okay? So I would get a process in a minute from Johanna in order for two things, and they can be in the same process. One is to try to help resolve the resistance, and secondly, to heal the source of the resistance, whatever relationship issue that is. You may know, you may not know. I would say, okay, what is the biggest negative feeling I have from this resistance and not doing something I believe would help me? And then find a relationship issue, if you can, that has that same negative emotion. If not, I would pray that if that's generationally inside you or unconsciously inside you, just from a time you can't remember, that it would be healed. But the kind of convincing yourself I would try on the resistance is, okay, resistance, the point of resistance is to not have something happen that you think will be unpleasant, which in this case would be doing the healing process itself. Well, reason with yourself that, hey, maybe there's a way I could spend just a few minutes, a little bit of time, and not have to deal with the resistance itself, which is way more unpleasurable than doing the thing. So at least you can try that and see if that can help you get yourself to do it a time or two. But that's what I would try.
Well, you know, the closest that I came to an answer, and I don't know if it's the complete one, was my mother, and my mother lost her first child. And there was a lot of fear. And
Sure.
at the time I was little, I remember being protected. Watch out. Watch out. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Right.
And then the fact that also I'm African American, that didn't help it either. There was, okay, don't do this. Don't do that. You might have this happen. And so I see that there's a possibility that the whole time she carried me, that there was this fear that she might leave me.
Right.
And as I was born, she and her first, living child, that this sense of protection and fear is within me. Some sort of, so that's the basic.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense to me. So I would get a process from Johanna to address those issues you just spoke of, as well as any that are unconscious to you, as well as the current resistance to do something that might help you feel better. I would get one process to work on all of that.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. And Johanna, I'm going to have to bug out. I love you, everyone. God bless.